It was 3:22 a.m. in the Taiwan Strait, and the water between the Chinese mainland and the island of Taiwan was running fast and dark under a northeast monsoon that had been pushing 4-foot swells through the 110-mile-wide channel since sundown. The strait is not a comfortable place to operate a carrier strike group under any conditions, shallow in sections, heavily trafficked by commercial vessels, and enclosed by coastlines on both sides, close enough that every radar system in the formation is painting land returns simultaneously with the operational picture. It is also, by any strategic assessment written in the last 3 decades, one of the most dangerous stretches of water on Earth for a surface naval force to operate in when the People's Liberation Army has decided it has something to prove. USS Ronald Reagan, CVN-76, a Nimitz-class nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, had entered the Taiwan Strait 14 hours earlier as the centerpiece of a deliberate, authorized, and legally unambiguous freedom of navigation operation conducted in international waters. Carrier Strike Group 5. The Reagan had made this transit before. American carriers had been making this transit since the Third Taiwan Strait Crisis of 1996, when President Clinton ordered 2 carrier groups through these waters to signal American resolve in the face of Chinese military provocations against Taiwan. The message then had been clear. The message now was the same message, stated with the same instrument. 100,000 tons of nuclear-powered carrier aviation operating in international waters, because international waters are open to any nation that chooses to sail through them, including the United States Navy, regardless of what Beijing's official position on the matter happens to be. The Reagan's strike group was configured for the threat environment with the specificity of a command that had studied Chinese anti-access and area denial doctrine for 20 years, and had built its defensive posture accordingly. The cruiser USS Chancellorsville, CG-62, held position 12 nautical miles ahead of the carrier, with her 122 vertical launch system cells loaded with a mix specifically chosen for the Taiwan Strait environment, SM-3 Block 2, A ballistic missile interceptors for the upper layer, SM-6 dual-role interceptors for the mid-course and terminal layer against maneuver and hypersonic threats, SM-2, Block 3B for conventional cruise missile defense, and ESSM Block 2 quad-packed for inner layer saturation defense. The destroyers USS Halsey, DDG-97, and USS Curtis Wilbur, DDG-54, held screening positions to port and starboard. A Virginia-class fast attack submarine ran silent at depth in the Strait's navigable channel ahead of the formation, and 2 E-2D advanced Hawkeyes were airborne simultaneously. The Reagan's Air Wing had launched both available Hawkeyes for this transit, a decision that gave the strike group overlapping radar coverage of the entire strait from both the northern and southern approach sectors simultaneously, with no gap in the air picture at any altitude. Above the strait, in the darkness that the Reagan's crew could see only as a ceiling of overcast at 14,000 feet, something had been watching the formation since it entered the northern approach to the strait. The PLA Rocket Force's Eastern Theater Command had been tracking the Reagan's approach to the strait for 72 hours. Satellite surveillance, maritime patrol aircraft flying from Fujian Province, signals intelligence collection from coastal monitoring stations, the Chinese intelligence picture of the Reagan's position, course, and speed was detailed and continuously updated. This was not a surprise to the Reagan's commanding officer or to the strike group commander. American carriers transiting sensitive waters operate under the assumption that they are being tracked. The assumption is always correct. The response to being tracked is not to alter behavior, but to ensure that the defensive systems protecting the formation are in the appropriate readiness posture for the threat environment. And in the Taiwan Strait, in the current geopolitical temperature, the appropriate readiness posture was everything active, everything manned, everything ready. The PLA Rocket Force's DF-17 Hypersonic Glide Vehicle System had been the subject of Western intelligence attention since its first public display at the 2019 National Day Parade in Beijing. The DF-17 is a medium-range ballistic missile that, instead of releasing a conventional re-entry vehicle on a ballistic arc, deploys a hypersonic glide vehicle designated HGV in Western analysis, that separates from the booster in the upper atmosphere and then maneuvers through the atmosphere at hypersonic speed, using aerodynamic lift to extend its range and vary its trajectory in ways that a conventional ballistic missile cannot. The glide vehicle maintains speeds of Mach 5 to Mach 10 during its terminal phase, maneuvering laterally and vertically to complicate intercept geometry. Chinese state media has described the DF-17 as specifically designed to defeat American carrier strike group defenses. The People's Daily called it an aircraft carrier killer, in language that suggested complete confidence in its ability to accomplish that mission. The PLA Rocket Force officers who approved the firing order at 3:08 a.m. believed they were launching an undefendable weapon against a target that could not protect itself. They had studied the technical literature. They understood the intercept challenge that a maneuvering hypersonic glide vehicle presents to existing missile defense architectures. They knew that the SM-3 Block 2A's intercept envelope is optimized for the exoatmospheric phase of a ballistic trajectory, the high, predictable arc of a conventional re-entry vehicle, and that a glide vehicle that stays in the upper atmosphere and maneuvers continuously does not present the same clean intercept geometry. They believed the DF-17 operated in what Western analysts had called the intercept gap, too fast and maneuverable for endo-atmospheric interceptors like the SM-6, potentially too low and maneuvering for the SM-3's exoatmospheric kill vehicle. They believed they had a weapon the Americans could not stop. They were wrong. But understanding why they were wrong requires understanding what had changed in the 2 years before this engagement. In a series of classified test programs that the U.S. Navy's surface warfare and ballistic missile defense communities had been running specifically because the DF-17 threat was assessed as real, credible, and requiring a dedicated solution before it was employed operationally. At 3:08 a.m., the PLA Rocket Force fired 6 DF-17 systems from mobile launchers dispersed across 3 sites in Fujian Province, approximately 340 to 480 kilometers northeast of the Reagan's position in the strait. The launches were simultaneous, all 6 boosters igniting within a 9-second window, the infrared bloom of 6 solid-fuel rocket motors lighting up the Defense Support Program satellite's sensors in geosynchronous orbit and transmitting track data to the Theater Ballistic Missile Defense Architecture within 4 seconds of ignition. 4 seconds. The AN/TPY-2 forward-based radar operating from a classified site in northern Taiwan, a deployment coordinated under the terms of the Taiwan Relations Act's defense cooperation provisions, whose existence was not publicly acknowledged but was thoroughly known to every intelligence service in the region, had been in search mode since the Reagan entered the strait and went to active track on all 6 DF-17 boosters within 8 seconds of the first launch. The radar's sensitivity in the high-altitude track mode was sufficient to acquire the boosters before they had completed their initial climb phase. track data was in the Aegis networks of USS Chancellorsville, USS Halsey, and USS Curtis Wilbur within 12 seconds of the first launch, 14 seconds from the first DF-17 motor, igniting to complete strike group awareness. The Reagan's TAO was being briefed at 14 seconds. The Chancellorsville's Aegis combat system was already computing intercept solutions at 12. Let us talk about those solutions, because they are the story of the last 2 years of classified American missile defense development rendered operational for the first time. The SM-6. Block 1 missile, in its baseline configuration, is an endo-atmospheric interceptor. It operates within the atmosphere, against targets flying below approximately 33 kilometers altitude, and its 64-kilogram blast fragmentation warhead is designed for proximity detonation against maneuvering aerodynamic targets. Against a conventional cruise missile or an aircraft, the SM-6 is an extraordinarily capable weapon. Against a hypersonic glide vehicle maneuvering at Mach 8 at altitudes between 40 and 60 kilometers, in the atmospheric layer above most conventional air defenses but below the SM-3's optimal intercept envelope, the baseline SM-6 has significant engagement limitations. The SM-6 Block IB is a different conversation. The Block IB variant, developed under a classified program and assessed by open-source analysts as representing a significant capability upgrade in both kinematic performance and guidance software, extends the SM-6's effective intercept envelope upward into the altitude layer where hypersonic glide vehicles operate and incorporates updated guidance algorithms specifically designed to engage maneuvering hypersonic targets. The Block IB's engagement solution accounts for the glide vehicle's maneuver capability by computing a probabilistic intercept corridor rather than a single-point intercept solution. A fundamentally different guidance approach that accepts the unpredictability of the target's maneuver and positions the interceptor to engage within a volume of space rather than at a single geometric point. Whether this system was ready, tested to sufficient operational confidence, and loaded in the VLS cells of USS Chancellorsville before this engagement is something that the U.S. Navy has never publicly confirmed. What is known is what happened at 3:14 a.m., 6 minutes after the DF-17 launches, when the 6 hypersonic glide vehicles separated from their spent boosters at approximately 100 kilometers altitude and began their glide phase, descending into the upper atmosphere at Mach 8 to Mach 10, maneuvering laterally as their onboard guidance systems began seeking the radar return of the Reagan's 100,000-ton hull in the strait below. USS Chancellorsville began firing at 3:15 a.m. The first interceptors out of the VLS cells were SM-6 Block IB, launched in pairs against each of the 6 inbound glide vehicles, the Aegis system assigning 2 interceptors per target to account for the engagement uncertainty inherent in hypersonic intercept geometry. 12 SM-6 Block IB missiles in the air within 40 seconds of the first firing authorization, each one climbing at Mach 3.5 toward intercept solutions that the Aegis system was updating continuously as the DF-17 glide vehicles maneuvered through the upper atmosphere. The Chancellorsville's SPY-1B radar was tracking all 6 glide vehicles simultaneously, their radar returns intermittent and challenging as they maneuvered. The plasma sheath generated by hypersonic atmospheric flight creates radar interference that degrades tracking quality, and was the primary argument in Chinese planning assessments for the DF-17's survivability against radar-guided intercept systems. The AN/T TPY-2 radar in northern Taiwan did not have the plasma sheath problem to the same degree, operating in the X-band frequency range at which the TPY-2 transmits and positioned at a ground geometry that gave it a side aspect radar return on the maneuvering glide vehicles, rather than the nose aspect return that maximizes the plasma sheath interference. The TPY-2 was maintaining track quality on all 6 DF-17 glide vehicles, with sufficient fidelity to support the SM-6 guidance updates being fed through the Aegis Cooperative Engagement Link. The Chancellorsville's Aegis system was not tracking the DF-17S alone. It was tracking them with the TPY-2's superior geometry picture fused into its own radar data, producing a composite track quality that neither sensor could have achieved independently. The first SM-6 Block IB intercept occurred at 3:17 a.m. at an altitude of 52 kilometers above the Taiwan Strait, 87 nautical miles northeast of the Reagan's position. The glide vehicle was maneuvering at the moment of intercept, its guidance system executing a pre-programmed lateral jink designed to defeat a point intercept solution. The SM-6's blast fragmentation warhead, detonating within lethal radius of the glide vehicle despite the maneuver, shredded the vehicle's aerodynamic control surfaces and thermal protection system. Without control surfaces, the glide vehicle could no longer maintain its trajectory. Without thermal protection, it began to break apart as aerodynamic heating increased during its now uncontrolled descent through the atmosphere. The debris was scattered across a 40-kilometer footprint in the upper atmosphere above the strait, none of it reaching the water as a coherent threat. Second glide vehicle, 49 kilometers altitude, 3:17 a.m. plus 40 seconds. The first SM-6 assigned to this track had guided to a proximity detonation that damaged but did not destroy the target. The glide vehicle's guidance system continued functioning through partial structural damage, and the intercept assessment was reported as probable kill, confirmed with second interceptor. The second SM-6 assigned to this track closed on the now partially damaged glide vehicle and detonated within 4 meters. Confirmed kill. Third, fourth, fifth. The Chancellorsville's Aegis system was working through the DF-17 formation with the systematic precision of a machine that processes multiple simultaneous engagement tracks without the cognitive load limitations that make multi-target engagement so difficult for human operators. Each glide vehicle was assigned, tracked, engaged, and assessed in parallel. Not sequentially, not one at a time, but simultaneously. The Aegis architecture's parallel processing capability applied to the specific problem of 6 hypersonic targets maneuvering at Mach 8 in the upper atmosphere above the world's most sensitive stretch of water. The 6th DF-17 glide vehicle presented the most difficult intercept geometry of the engagement. It had maneuvered more aggressively than the others. A longer lateral displacement at higher altitude that pushed it toward the edge of the SM-6 Block IB's engagement envelope and required the Aegis system to cue a third interceptor after the first 2 reported proximity detonations that degraded but did not destroy the target. The third SM-6 found the damaged, now erratically maneuvering glide vehicle at 38 kilometers altitude. The detonation was clean. The 6th DF-17 ceased to exist as a coherent object at 3:19 a.m., 10 seconds before the weapon's projected impact point calculation had it reaching the Strait's surface. 6 DF-17 hypersonic glide vehicles. All 6 destroyed. The entire engagement had taken 4 minutes and 12 seconds from first firing authorization to the last confirmed kill. The USS Ronald Reagan had not altered her course, had not changed her speed, had not gone to general quarters. Her flight deck was in the standard pre-dawn configuration for early morning launch preparation, and the sailors working on it had felt nothing, heard nothing, and known nothing of what had just been destroyed in the upper atmosphere above them until the 1MC announcement from the Combat Information Center told them, in calm and measured terms, that a ballistic missile defense engagement had been completed successfully and the formation was continuing its transit. The Reagan's captain received a one-page engagement summary at 3:24 a.m. He read it. He signed it. He told his watch officer to ensure the morning flight plan was unaffected and went to the bridge to watch the first hint of dawn develop over the Taiwan Strait. In the PLA Rocket Force's Eastern Theater Command Operations Center, the picture on the radar displays was, by any honest assessment, a disaster. 6 DF-17 systems had been fired. 6 had been destroyed before any of them reached the strait's surface. The weapons that Beijing had spent billions of yuan developing, testing, and describing in state media as the definitive answer to American carrier strike group operations in the Western Pacific. The weapons, whose public display at the National Day Parade had been specifically designed to communicate to Washington and to Taiwan that China had found the solution to American naval power in the region, had been intercepted in the upper atmosphere by a defensive system that the PLA's own technical assessments had rated as inadequate for the task. The analysis that would have to be written in the days after this engagement by the technical intelligence and operational assessment officers who would review every parameter of the DF-17's flight and the American intercept was going to be a document that nobody in the PLA Rocket Force's leadership wanted to read. The maneuver profiles had been executed as designed. The launch dispersion had been appropriate. The salvo size had been within the parameters of the engagement plan. And 6 of the most advanced hypersonic glide vehicles in the Chinese arsenal had been destroyed before any of them covered the last 40 kilometers to the target, by an intercept system that the PLA's own assessment had characterized as insufficiently capable of engaging maneuvering hypersonic targets. That assessment was wrong. The Americans had solved the problem quietly, without announcement, in classified test ranges over the high desert of the American West, and in fleet exercises whose results were protected at classification levels that China's intelligence services had not fully penetrated. The solution was not perfect. The engagement had required multiple interceptors against several of the glide vehicles, and the Chancellorsville's VLS expenditure had been significant. But it had worked in live operational conditions against the real weapon rather than a simulated target, and it had worked with a completeness that left no ambiguity about the outcome. The Reagan completed her Taiwan Strait transit at 7:14 a.m., exiting into the South China Sea in the standard formation that American carriers always use when clearing the southern end of the strait. She had been in the strait for 21 hours. She had been engaged by the most advanced hypersonic weapon system in the Chinese inventory. She emerged without a scratch, her crew having consumed approximately the same number of meals as they would have on any other transit day. Her flight deck already launching the first sorties of the morning. The Taiwan Strait is international water. The air above it is international airspace. The United States Navy transits it when operational requirements and national policy dictate, without seeking permission from Beijing, because permission is not required in international water, and the United States Navy does not condition its operations in international commons on the approval of nations that dispute their international status. The PLA Rocket Force had fired 6 DF-17s to demonstrate that this posture was unsustainable. that American carriers could not operate in the strait without being destroyed. The demonstration produced the opposite conclusion. American carriers can operate in the Taiwan Strait. The DF-17 cannot stop them. And every parameter of those 6 glide vehicles' flight performance, maneuver profiles, and guidance signatures had been recorded, analyzed, and incorporated into the continuously updating database that makes the next intercept slightly easier than this one. The USS Ronald Reagan turned south into the South China Sea as the sun came up over the Philippine Sea to the east. The Taiwan Strait closed behind her. The strait remained open, as it always has been. Bye for now.